So how about you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Okay, I'm Lex Krow. Last year started a business, Lex Krow Stories and Tellings LLC, that does various forms of story work, including writing, editing, and voice acting. Before that point, I'd done all of those things in a more semi-professional capacity, and I just had the opportunity to make it into an actual business, and that's what I've been working on.
That's cool. So, like, what do you, like, hire creative people, or what exactly does the company do?
No, I do those things. So
okay.
The other half of my work, in addition to voice acting, is writing, specifically novels. And I've been working on getting an agent for a little while now. The business itself focuses a little more on the side of editing and working on other people's writing to make it better.
Oh, awesome. Okay, so
And then the voice acting side is exactly this, just voice acting.
Right. Have you played visual novels before, or are you a fan of them?
I have played a couple visual novels before. I think most notably Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney is a very cool game. Definitely more on the silly side of visual novels, but certainly a favorite of mine. There's been a couple others. See, what my friends and I tend to do, funny enough, is we get together in groups to play stuff like that, and then we voice the characters ourselves, because a lot of those games don't have the voice acting. And we just have some fun with that. So this was kind of just like, oh, I've done this before. Kind of, you know?
Yeah, that's cool. Okay. Yeah, I feel like Ace Attorney is like everybody's first visual novel, honestly.
Let's see, what was the other one? We played one called, but it was Seduce Me the Otome. And okay, so here's the thing about Seduce Me the Otome. You hear the name, and you played like the first 10, 20 minutes of the game, and, you know, you really, like, your expectations are not very high. But that game has a lot of content for being free to play, and it was actually really fun to go through it and get a terrible ending, because it had a lot of them.
I don't know if you've ever played a visual novel called Asagao Academy.
I have not.
That's like the only visual novel I've ever played, but I was obsessed with it. And I played it for like months, and I did like every path that you could do and stuff. But yeah, awesome. I think visual novels can be super fun.
Oh, I think that the concept of visual novels is great. It's cool to see a mashup of, like, two mediums that, in the sense of, like, video games and books, right. That's something I really appreciate seeing.
Yeah,
I think I've watched more visual novels get played than I've played them myself, but they're cool.
Definitely. So, like, what inspired you to start VA work?
Well, I had originally gotten into theater, just, like, stage theater productions when I was a lot younger. And through that, I ended up becoming part of a group called Don't Close Your Eyes Live Radio Theater. And what we did is we would be on stage with, like, you know, the cool mic setup and a bunch of sound effects, practical sound effects on a table behind us. And we would read a radio play in front of an audience. But it was radio play style, where we're not, like, doing the physical acting more than you do when you're voice acting to begin with. And we're just reading it, like, into the mics. The practical effects are going on behind us. And it was a really fun experience. And I did that for a couple of years before some of the people that were involved kind of spread to the four winds, and we were not able to continue doing the process. The other thing about it is that the way that we did it, it was supposed to be very much in the spirit of radio theater as it in its original form. So the writers, there were two of them, they would write a play in a week. Each of them, like, would write one, and then, like, we'd do that play while the other writer was writing the next one, and we do that for 7 weeks in the summer. So it was a very stressful process for them, and then a little bit for us, because, you know, we're learning the play, like we get the script on Monday, we do a read-through, and then on Friday we're doing it.
That sounds stressful.
But yeah, it was super fun, though. And that was kind of what sold me on the idea that, like, you know, that's like, oh, voice acting is something that I would definitely really like to do. I didn't consider it as a viable option until last year, though, because I didn't have the equipment for it. And I didn't think that I wanted to jump out into that situation. The thing that changed it is that my partner was getting into audio stuff at the same time, not voice acting so much as music production. And so through that process, we started to actually accumulate some of the equipment that I would need as well. And so it kind of became a thing of like, well, we can finish out the set and then I can actually give this a go.
So what was your first voice acting job? Like the first one that you like got paid for and actually had to work?
So I know I said DCYU was where I got into this stuff. However, that's not actually where my first voice acting job was. It was in see, I was 16, I'm inclined to say. And I did a student film. I was the voice of the computer in a sci-fi student film because I have a decent GLaDOS impression and that got me the role. So I was quite young at the time. I did get paid for it though. And then there was a huge stretch of 4, 5, 6 years after that where I didn't do anything. Mm-hmm. And then DCYE happened.
Was that the first job that excited you and that you were really excited to do?
It was definitely cool to do. Mm-hmm. I do have a soft spot in my heart for robot voices because GLaDOS in Portal was one of the first voices that I really latched onto. This is so cool. And getting the chance to do that was definitely very exciting for me and hugely enjoyable. Since then, I usually connect on some level with the roles that I'm given. I find that even if you don't think that you're going to, once you start reading lines in the voice of the character, it automatically just becomes something that's closer to you and something that, you kind of need to connect with it. Not just for the sake of the show, but just for the sake of you doing the role.
Yeah, I mean, acting's always seemed so difficult to me because you actually have to become that character no matter who they are, and I can't imagine doing that, and I'm sure it's a very difficult job.
I think that it's a matter of practice, like most jobs. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I've been acting since I was really young, so a lot of that is just a buildup of muscle memory. And I'm not going to claim that I'm an amazing, truly amazing actor or anything like that, but I just think that like most jobs, it's the sort of thing where the more you practice, the better you get at it, and that talent is what other people see when they don't see all the work that all the practice that went into getting to where you are.
Of course. Would you say that there was a very large obstacle in your career, in your voice acting career, to get to where you are now? Or was there ever a time where you doubted yourself and maybe thought about quitting?
I doubt myself constantly. That lives rent-free in my brain.
Yes.
Always. The good part is that I have a lot of people in my life who support me and who tell me to keep going when I do have thoughts about stopping. And that goes for all of my work, not just voice acting.
I mean, I totally relate to you on that level about the doubting.
I really do think it's just a part of human existence.
Of course, and especially in a creative field. I mean, you can doubt yourself even more, I think.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. So as far as obstacles really go, yes, the doubt is there. And then I think, as I mentioned earlier, equipment was the next big obstacle. Yeah. Because if you want to make a good quality recording, there's, some stuff that you need to do that. And it's not a USB mic really isn't going to cut it for a lot of the work that you want to do. It's a fine place, to start if you want to do more casual projects. But once you start getting to the point where I would like people to pay me for this, then they're going to want something a little more than that. So there's some costs you got to sink into that.
I actually have one of those Snowball blue microphones.
Yeah.
I'm using that right now, and so it's definitely for an amateur.
Yeah. It totally works for the majority of situations that you're in. Just not when the audio needs to go into a game or a show or whatever else. Yeah. And of course, with the pandemic going on, which is also when I started doing this, there was no hope of going into a studio to. Mm-hmm. Also, I don't live in a place where there's a lot of big name recording studios that do that sort of thing. I live in the middle of nowhere, so. Yeah,
I think COVID's made that a lot harder, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Is there anybody who inspires you, in voice acting? I know you said GLaDOS was a voice that you really liked.
Yeah, Ellen McLean. Ellen McLean, definitely up there. There's also Laura Bailey, who's done so many voices. Mm-hmm. Jennifer Hale, probably best known for FemShep, but she does so much stuff, for Mass Effect. Sungwon Cho, also known as ProZD, he's got his YouTube channel. His voice work is fantastic. And Logan Cunningham from Supergiant Games, which that's Bastion, Transistor Pyre, and Hades. Right. And he always does stuff for them, and he's just fantastic.
Yeah. I'm glad you listed people that I know, because some people have listed a bunch of people I have no idea who they are, so I can't make conversation about it. But were you a fan of Abby in Last of Us 2?
I didn't play Last of Us 2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay, I know about Laura Bailey a lot from, let's see, I can't say I first encountered her in Soul Eater because I probably heard her voice before that point and didn't recognize her because she's so good at changing her voice to different roles.
Yeah.
Also, Serana in Elder Scrolls.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's her?
Yeah, that's
I
Laura
didn't know
Bailey.
that.
Right?
Oh my gosh. That's crazy. Okay.
Yeah. And lots of other stuff. So on YouTube started recommending me Critical Role animatics as well, so I've gotten to hear some of her voices from that, even though I don't follow the show regularly. And oh my god, she's so much fun.
Yeah.
And she does such a good job.
Yeah, she really is so talented. And she was so talented in Last of Us 2 as well.
I believe it. Yeah, I don't have the correct consoles to play Last of Us 2.
Okay.
But I have heard, okay, I guess I should say, I've heard mixed reviews about Last of Us 2, but every time I hear what people are complaining about, I'm like, I think that might have just been good storytelling. So I'm not really, like,
yeah, I definitely
good storytelling that made you
opinions.
uncomfortable because it's good storytelling, you know?
Right. Yeah. All the acting in that game was incredible. So, coming off of that, do you have, like, a favorite video game or a movie or novel or anything?
Oh, yes. Oh, boy. Okay, let's start with favorite video game. I think that the top of my list is currently Dishonored by Arcane Studios.
Yeah.
It came out a little while ago. I fell in love with that game mostly for its atmosphere and the world that it put me into. I love the gameplay, I love the lore, I love the story and voice acting characters. It's a wonderful game. Certainly, like, there are games out now that are like more polished, probably better gameplay, but really Dishonored's, like, the city of Dunwall, the setting, the just grit and awfulness and ugliness of this world I was moving around in just really sucked me in, and I just fell head over heels for that game. The other game that's coming to mind at the top of the list is Transistor, which is a game by Supergiant, in which you are a woman who has had her voice stolen from her and her boyfriend turned into a sword, and you go through this seemingly virtual reality world attempting to stop this invasive virus that has started to infect it. And everything about that game is beautiful and wonderful and so deeply moving. Supergiant, I'm pretty sure, has never put out a bad game. Like, they have 4 out and they're all incredible.
Yeah, they have a really great streak going. And I haven't tried Hades yet, but I really want to.
Oh, it's wonderful. I started it up recently. It's such a good take on, like, the roguelike structure.
Yeah, I love the art.
The art's beautiful. All of the gods are hot. All the characters are hot. I think that's something you hear people talking about a lot. And going into it, I was like, I sometimes notice that stuff, but I'm probably going to be more about the gameplay. And I was like, oh, no, I'm noticing that these guys are hot. But yeah, it does a really good job of making you not feel like you failed when you died. Like, you have, but the way that the story progresses with each death is very rewarding, and it makes it a lot less frustrating, and it just it sucks you in. I started it only recently because it came out a little while ago. I knew I was going to get obsessed with it, and so I purposefully did not start playing until recently when I kind of had some time on my hands, and I was like, I can sink my entire life into this. That'll be fine.
What about, like, a movie or a book?
Movie. I love the Studio Ghibli movies.
Oh my god, me too.
They top out my list pretty much every time. My favorite among them is Spirited Away.
Oh, me too.
Despite the fact that it was a movie that terrified me when I was young. Not No Face. It was the parents turning into pigs.
That,
spoiler.
For me too. It's so weird you're saying that, because that's exactly for me too.
That's hilarious.
That scene was imprinted in my brain, and I was like, I could never get it out.
Yeah, I couldn't finish watching the movie the first time that I saw it because that scared me so much. And then later on, went back, rewatched it, and I was like, this is a beautiful masterpiece that will forever be at the top of my list of favorite movies. And then everything else that Hayao Miyazaki makes is an absolute treasure as well. If we're going outside Studio Ghibli, probably Hot Fuzz. I don't know. It's such a clever movie.
Spirited Away was actually such a big inspiration for Where the Stars Brought Us for me.
Really?
Oh, God. Because I watched it multiple times throughout writing this game, and I love the relationship between Sen and, that's not her real name, but Chihiro and Haku.
Yeah, totally.
I just saw
Oh, yeah.
that.
Is that like the dynamic? Because you remember, I have only read the parts of the script that I'm in. They gave me nothing else. So but I know about something about the characters. So is that like the relationship between Rio and May or Mai? I'm sorry, my Latin always
Rio and
gets in the
May.
way
Yeah,
when
it
I see
is.
an
That was
AE.
like, yeah.
That's really cool. I'm looking forward to playing this and like seeing it come out because I'm so curious about what the heck happens between like the start of the game where I am and the ending where I appear, and I'm just like, you did a good job saving that little girl, and I'm like, I have no idea what I'm talking about, but
How did you find out about Where the Stars Brought Us?
Through voices.com. I have a guess that you guys might have originally had a different voice actor for this character who then had to leave the project for some reason and then put out an ad on Voices, because I have seen elsewhere that like a different voice actor was credited for some of the original material. I don't know exactly what happened, but that was the only role that I saw, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll try to be an old lady. I'll see about that. And what was funny to me about it is I didn't think I was going to get it because Voices has a function where people, when they listen to your recording, they can like it, and that probably means you got a better chance of getting it. That didn't happen, so I was like, probably not. And then Demetrius sends me a message, just, hey, you got the role. Excuse me?
Were you excited?
Oh yeah, I'm excited every time I get a voice acting role. I really love the work, so it doesn't really matter what the project is. I'm just like, yes, okay, here we go.
Well, I really mean it when I thought that you were legitimately an old woman. Like, I was shocked when I heard your voice for the first time. I was like, oh my god, this is a young person.
That is very flattering, and I really appreciate it. I wasn't sure how convincing the voice was, so.
Yeah, I was thinking to myself before I started this interview, I was like, what? Like, she's old, so has she, like, played any games? Like, is she, like... So that's a compliment, definitely, to you. Because
thank you so much.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that.
Was it difficult to act as an old lady? Or was it... Because I know earlier you said that, you like to put yourself in their position and, like, know your character. So was it hard?
Okay, so... I think the biggest thing I had going for me is in the book that I'm currently working on, one of my characters is around the age of Miss Wan and a very similar temperament. So I actually had a character in mind when I was working on her, just like, as kind of a template. And that made it a lot easier. As far as the voice itself goes, I did, like, spend a little time beforehand thinking, like, okay, what qualities, like, really sell an old voice, and, like, because you can, like, there's the crackliness aspect, there's kind of a breathiness aspect, there's a waveriness to it, and kind of combining those together, I guess made for a pretty convincing rendition, which is great. That combined with having this other character who's, like, been existing in my mind for a while did not make it that difficult to jump into the role.
Right. Well, I'm glad that the stars kind of aligned in that way.
Yeah, very lucky.
Yeah. When you were recording, were you actually with Jaden? Like, were you there together at the same time, or did you have to pretend like he was there, like you were talking to him?
It was actually great. We were there at the same time. Demetrius set this up so that we were talking through Discord while we were recording at our own home setups, so that we could both get the good audio from our actual mics and whatnot, and at the same time be able to play off of one another's reactions. And that felt very intuitive. It was so much fun to work with another actor, because I did not think that was something I was going to get a chance to do during the pandemic. I wasn't even sure if that's something you really did with voice acting. But it was really good to be able to play off of those responses and also hear the voice of Rio, because I didn't really know what to expect if he was going to be, like, because in that first scene, he has some lines that, like, are very much in, like, he's thinking them, he's internalizing them, and it's, like, kind of cynical and a little bit sassy. And I was like, okay, so is that, like, kind of the character I'm working with here? And then Jaden pops out with this, like, kind of bright, very protagonist voice, and I'm like, oh, this is not exactly what I expected it to be, but that's great, because it is going to change how I kind of deliver these lines, because I guess he does cause Miss Wan trouble, and that's, like, of course is in there, but, like, the way that he conducts himself is so sweet, and she probably appreciates that. So yeah, it did change the delivery a little bit.
And even though Miss Wan doesn't have many lines and really is only there for 2 parts of the game, she's actually a super important character. Because number one, she sets up almost the entire story and who Rio is. And then at the end, she wraps the whole thing up. So she's like there for the two most important aspects of the game.
Oh, totally, yeah. I have no problem with like how much she was in the game. Like she she was a really cool character in my opinion. I liked a lot that she was, she's stern, she's no nonsense, but you can tell she really cares about her students, and that she really does believe in Rio, and she wants him to rise to meet that potential that she sees. And so you're not just playing like a strict angry old woman, there's like a lot of tenderness underneath all of that, and which comes out more in the end, at least the way I played it at the end, because the questions that she's asking, I think like a lot of it, she's like, I don't see how this is going to further your career as a biologist. Even as she's saying that, she clearly already knows that's like, Rio has found himself, and that's great. So this is more just about like exploring that a little bit than me actually not wanting you to be in this place. That's not it at all.
And she has a soft side. It's just very difficult to find. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, Rio knew her long enough to where she believed in him and thought he was super smart and didn't want him to go down that same path as his father.
Yeah. No, she's got a soft side. She's deeply compassionate, I think. Just, very old and doesn't have time for people to faff about, so to speak. It's just like, no, just get to the point, get to the part where you're doing it well. I know you can,
Well, I'm glad that you were able to play her. And like I said, I mean, your voice fits her perfectly. And
well, thank you. I'm very glad that I could be part of this project. I hope to be part of future projects with this group, because this was just such a great experience. And it's something that I would like to continue doing. But, you're working on another game. Maybe I will find a role in that.
Yeah, I hope so. Are you a fan of like doing like weird voices, or do you prefer to keep your voice?
No, I will do any voice that someone thinks sounds good. I like far and wide. I am happy to do anything from the ridiculous to the very serious.
Okay, awesome. Like with that, I mean, I'm sure you can get like a bunch of different roles, since you're a fan of like being so many different people and stuff. And again, you could be an old lady your whole career and everybody would believe you.
Good to know. Yeah. Well, I did. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you go ahead. I was going to ask another question. So.
Oh, I was going to say, I did send in some audition sides for this, for Natsu no Yoru, and this other game that Evan Soft's been working on. So, good, hopefully I'll be fortuitous enough to get one of those. That'd be really cool.
I hope so too. Do you have any like career aspirations, or is there like a dream job that you have?
Okay. As far as the voice acting side of things goes, it would definitely be cool to be in like, not necessarily like a major studios game, but like, there's a couple that like being in a Supergiant game, for example, would be just a dream come true. Other than that, like I guess I don't have like expectations. I try to avoid expectations because I think they can be very dangerous and damaging. They can play into that whole doubt thing, because if you don't get where you think you should be, sometimes it can start to feel like you're not getting anywhere. So right now I am very much just, still taking every job as like, I get to do this and I'm grateful for this and it's taking me another step forward and we'll see where it goes. On the other side of my career, the writing side, I just, I'd like to be a published author one day. Hopefully get out this series that's been lingering in my head for a couple of years now. The first book of which is pretty much written. It's just, another editing pass. There's always another editing pass.
Well, I hope that works out for you. And do you have anybody that you'd like to thank or mention anybody's name?
Well, I might avoid mentioning names because I didn't have a chance to talk with people about how much I could disclose about friends and family. But I will say that my parents have been hugely supportive of me wanting to be an artist, and I literally would not be where I am without them right now because of that. Their belief and their support has been something that I know a lot of artists, a lot of people who want to be artists, a lot of artists that exist, they don't have that in their lives. I am hugely privileged and hugely lucky to have had that. And I am constantly aware of just what they have done for me and have so much gratitude about it. And my friends as well, they also have a lot of belief, I think. And they've never walked up to me and said, like, you sure you don't want a real job? They're not people. That's not who they are. That's not what they do. They actually read my work if I ask them to, which they do not have to. And and they give me real feedback about it. Like, they don't just say, like, it was great. They tell me if something is not working, and they tell it to me in a very kind way, so I have to appreciate that. And then, of course, I have to mention...
is very important.
Mm-hmm. And, of course, I have to mention my partner, who, again, without his interest in audio production and music, would not have gotten to the point of having all the equipment that we do. Mm-hmm. And he is the one who is most consistently around, I would say, to tell me to stop doubting myself. I believe that the term he likes to use when I start to get those intrusive thoughts are, that thought is a sack of shit that does not have your best interests at heart. And it's wonderful to have someone to remind you of that from time to time.
Well, that's great, and I'm glad that you have that support system, and that's important to have that when you're doing something in a creative field, I think. Thank you so much for your time today. It was great to talk to you.
Thank you. This was a very fun interview to do.
For me, too.
Good luck on your next project, and all of your writing endeavors. May you not have too much creative blockages along the way.
Well, thank you. That is a very nice thing to say.